Okay, so hi everyone, welcome. My name is Miroslav Velik, or Merrick for short. I'm based at Campbelltown TAFE and I teach maths and science here in the TPC program and the Cert 2 program. Okay, let's get started on the presentation, AI and ChatGPT, changes in education. So I've skewed this presentation towards an educational perspective. So hopefully it'll give you some insight into how we can use it as teachers. There's music, so hopefully you might hear some of that. I'm not sure if you hear it, but there's a bit of background music that I started with that was generated by AI, and I'll give you the link for that later on. So TAFE New South Wales acknowledges Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the traditional custodians of the land, rivers and sea. We acknowledge and pay our respects to elders past and present and emerging of all nations. Okay, so AI and ChatGPT overview. This presentation will explore the world of AI. They're all at ChatGPT and AI platforms used for education, some of the latest advancements in technology and how it's shaping the future of education will be discussed. I was just going through the survey before we started, so I'll just go through so we have a good understanding of what the audience, or all the teachers and the people watching, what their experiences of AI are so far, and finding that most people don't have any experience with it. There's a large percentage that have a basic understanding of how it's used, and about half and half have actually used it. So the most usage has been with ChatGPT, so which is pretty good. So the people that have used it will be familiar with what I'm doing, a little familiar anyway. And the range of people we have people from range of streams, teaching streams, which is great, and capabilities. And I've formulated some questions that people had from the comments at the end, which we can go through at the end as discussion points. So I won't talk too much about some of the issues that came through the survey till the end. So quick introduction. So the picture there is generated by AI as well. It's supposed to be a depiction of Alan Turing, who basically is the father of AI. So it was evolved in the 50s, or it started in the 50s, and there's been a lot of progress with AI since then, but it's also been shelved many times. So it's come to the forefront as a technology many, many times over the last 50, 60 years, and it's been shelved because it couldn't get any further. But at the moment, it's going through a boom, hence why we're looking at it now. Alan Turing was known for inventing the computer that broke the Enigma machine during World War II. So I'm not sure if you've watched the movie, the Enigma code. He developed a massive computer that was able to break the code and help win World War II. He wrote a paper in 1950, not long after he did that, about creating thinking machines. So he proposed that there would be computers eventually that could think just like humans. He also developed a Turing test, which determines if a computer can trick humans into thinking it's also human. So at this point, that Turing test is almost broken, or AI can actually take that test quite well. So the boundaries of that test have to be changed. Basically, we have to ask a few more questions, or have consistent answers from AI to see whether or not it's human. And we can still tell it's not human, but in a lot of cases we can't. I'll specifically be talking about OpenAI and ChatGPT. OpenAI is a non-for-profit, so it's a profit-free organization that has been set up by billionaires and lots of organizations. So Microsoft is on the board now, and it is associated with ChatGPT, which is the money-making part of that organization. Okay, so ChatGPT can generate text just like humans, but it has got limitations. So until 2022, so late 2022, AI was the domain of massive corporations or large organizations. It was too expensive for individuals to use. So ChatGPT has actually democratized this, and AI is there for everyone now that has got access to technology and the internet. The AI sector is emerging, and many advances are being made daily, and new applications being developed daily as well. So what can we use AI for as educators? Simply, we can use it as a spell and grammar checker. That's one of the basic tools. We can use it for summarization, translation, web search. It's far better than Google if you're looking for anything. So you can put, if you've got the subscribe for ChatGPT, then you can do web searches quite easily, much faster than Google. There are some free ones as well that I'll discuss later on, but it's far better than Google because it gives you 1 or 2 correct answers instead of 15, 20 answers that then you have to go through. We can use it for class planning and lesson plans, curriculum development, customized chatbots for learning, customized learning pathways, data analysis, document assistance, document creation, essay and report writing or evaluation, image creation, interactive learning tools, use it as a planner, professional development, and role play bots. So I've actually taken some of these and created examples of them for this presentation, and we'll have a look at them shortly. So why all the hype? Okay, one of the biggest hypes about AI is our exposure to it. So this graph, if you have a look at it, the biggest exposure is going to be office and admin. Okay, and then we are down in education. We're down as I think number 8 or 9, and we are at 27% impact from automation by AI. So that's education. We actually have probably got a bigger impact because office and admin is a big part of our workload as well. So that's going to have a big impact on us as well. In most cases, hopefully, it'll be positive. So educational sector faces a 27% exposure to AI automation. So it's quite large. Office and admin is 46%. Legal sector is about 44%. One of the reasons that legal sector has got a big impact is because AI can read legal documents quite easily, and then you just need a few experts in the field to oversee the outcomes. And it's the same thing for education. We just need experts in the field. It goes for all of the stuff that's applied with AI. You need experts in the field to verify the content of the outcome. Healthcare and personal care sectors are less affected by AI, only 26% or so. Manual labor, construction, maintenance, repair are quite low at 4 to 6%. And the reason for that is we don't have robots yet that can actually carry out the work. But that might happen eventually. The overall average across all industries is about 30% impact. So there will be an impact to all work sectors. So there will be an impact on jobs, but there will also be a drive in potential increase in global GDP of about 7%. So which means that overall as a society we will be more productive and possibly have easier lives, but we have to wait and see. The data suggests there is a need for educational sectors to adapt teaching and training to equip the workforce with AI-resistant skills. So that was some of the points that most of you brought up in the survey, that you are worried about not being exposed to the training and the skills that will be needed for using AI. So economic growth from AI will grow. New job categories will be there. We don't know what they are called. We don't know what they are yet, but upskilling opportunities through TAFE and through education will definitely be there. And that goes for all of our students in the future. I think all students, and this is near future, will need to be trained in how to use AI effectively. So the work displacement, these are disruptions that have occurred to workplaces over the last 60, 70 years. So Goldman Sachs and Global put this together, and what they find is that over the years, when there is a disruption, it's in the workforce, it's usually balanced by growth in new jobs. So we don't need to fear that everyone's going to lose their jobs. There will be new jobs created. We just don't know what they are yet. Just like, we didn't know what an iPhone was 10, 15 years ago. Everyone knows how to use one now. And it'll be the same thing with AI. So the growth shows the possibility of direct substitution of obsolete jobs with new positions. It's important to note the need for strategic adjustment in education and training to facilitate a smooth transition from traditional employment to emerging job roles. Okay, so that's some of the, I guess, emotional stuff. So AI that we use without knowing it. AI is all around us, and it's being embedded every day into almost every bit of tech that's around us. So one of the things that's been around for a while is tolls. We don't even realize it, but when you travel through a tollway in Sydney, okay, AI is being used. So there's a camera, AI-enabled camera that takes your photo, links it up to your number plate. This info is then fed into, is then interpreted to identify your car, and it's fed into a system where the AI automatically charges you for the trip. And it happens completely without any physical interaction by you. Other examples, Teams. I've only just worked that out, that there's a new component in Teams which will listen to your conversation while you're presenting, or even when you're just talking to someone on Teams, and all of that information, possibly unbeknownst to us, is being collected by Microsoft and then put into a large language model. And I'll talk about large language models later, which is training. So they're basically training these models on everything that they can get their hands on. So it will eventually, at the end of this, if I clicked on the appropriate button, it would have reviewed my presentation to tell me how many likes and arms and other words that are undesirable I would have used, and to try and minimize that next time. Alexa, Amazon's developing a large language model that can be used for Alexa, so that will be a lot smarter, but there'll be a similar thing, just like ChatGPT, that you'll be able to use through Amazon. Siri will have embedded AI soon as well, or large language model AI, which is different to normal AI because it's the one that can talk to you in almost a natural human way. Large language model AI will be embedded into almost every tech, and it's cut off a bit very soon. And we're talking within months, probably not years. Okay, large language models and neural networks, which is what all this stuff is based on. So what is a large language model? So I've asked, this is Firefly, I asked it to depict what it would look like. So the bit in the middle is the large language model based on a huge amount of data, which is surrounded by a neural network with all these different nodes that can talk to bits and pieces within the large language models and go backwards and forwards between it. So how does it work? The large language models, such as OpenAI, which is depicted in the center, contains a huge amount of text collected from the internet using books, websites, scientific papers, and other texts available. So it's come from everything on the internet. They've basically gone through and scraped everything up until the April of 2023, and it's in these large language models, and it's been all the large language models are trained on this, or this OpenAI is anyway, which is the biggest one at this point. The neural network structure around the LLM is called a transformer, and it transforms the information into a chat type interactive process. So we can use bots to talk to it then. This design can understand the context and sequence in the data, so it can make sense of it in a way, which allows the model to accurately predict and generate text with a level of coherence that's human-like. So it's getting to talk to us. It's basically using our language. Instead of using computer language, it's instead of coding, it's able to use our language now, which means that we can interact with computers in a far more efficient and accessible way. How does it work? So LLM predicts text based on a lot of data. You could say all data up to 2023, all of human data that's been put into text, images, words, videos, voice, all of that stuff is stored in large language models now. So here's an example. I've asked it to do some predictions. I'll give it a word. I've told it to predict the next word. That's sunny, and it said sunny afternoon. Okay, and then I asked it to predict the next 10 words. And it creates a short story based on that. Then I asked it to predict the next 100 words. Okay, and it goes into a bit of a story about all sorts of stuff. Okay, so it uses predictive text, so it can recognize patterns, and then based on some input, it has to have some input, it can actually create a pattern of words that makes sense. And this is based on just the huge amounts of data that it has access to. ChatGPTs and GPTs and other artificial intelligence platforms. So let's have a look. Claude is one of them. So you can explore some of these later on if you like. It's put together by Anthropic, which is an organization, and it has a fairly large context window. And I'll explain what that is. It's got 75,000 context window, which means that with any one particular chat within, so when you're using ChatGPT and you're talking at the one time, that is one context window. So Claude can get up to 75,000 words, which is quite large. As soon as you get past that 75,000 words, it doesn't remember the first thing that you talked about. So it'll lose that memory. But they're working on that, and there was some research done last week, and eventually you'll be able to talk to it indefinitely, and it'll remember the first conversation without a problem. But this is probably within the next 6 months. ChatOpenAI.com, which is ChatGPT. Okay, that's the one that I use most of the time, is one of the more versatile ones. You do have to pay for it, but it does, there's a free one and there's one that you pay for, but the free one doesn't have all the built-in features such as analysis of images or graphs, data, and you can't generate documents and graphs either. You can't, so you need to have the one that you pay for, but there's other ones that I'll talk about later that are a lot cheaper than the $20 US. But for what it does, it's actually pretty cheap. It will generate images as well, as I said there, and can interpret images with vision as well. And I'll show you how it does that later. Poe is another one developed by Quora, is an AI chat platform, and it does look like GPT-4 and Claude. They all have very similar ways of interacting with us. And they do have a free and a subscription option as well. Stability AI has got a lot of stuff for free on there. It will create audio, images, languages, and videos. Some of these modes will need subscription, but they're working on video generation, so you can create a video that will actually look quite natural. And within the next months, maybe years, you'll be able to put in a request for it to create a movie of your choice with your actors in it, or with your genre, and then you can basically have entertainment on demand through this. And this is coming. This will be quite soon. Ucom is also a very good GPT type chat bot. It does use GPT-4, so a lot of them do use the large language model developed by OpenAI, but they just develop their own applications on top. It does have an education subscription and has got a lot of applications and options. The education subscription is quite cheap. I think it was up in $7 US a month if you're a teacher. But at the moment, it doesn't have direct uploads, but it does have a way of doing it if you put in some plugins for it or applications. You add applications to it. Microsoft Copilot, which we all have access to, and it's through 365. It is built in, and there are more features being developed almost on a daily basis. So you will find every time you look at Microsoft 365, there's new bits of Copilot popping up that you can use. At the moment, it's still pretty clunky, and it's definitely not as good as ChatGPT, but it's getting there, and it probably will be as good as ChatGPT within the next few months. And that's free for all of us to use at the moment, because we have an enterprise agreement. Sorry, an enterprise subscription. Not anymore. Adobe Firefly, that's the image generation AI that I used for some of the images in here. And again, that's free for TAFE teachers through the Adobe Suite. So you just got to log in, and then you can create your own images. And I'll show you how that's done later on. there are way too many to list here. There's probably 100 developed every day or being put up on the web somewhere every day. A lot of them paid for, many are free, with parts of it being subscription based. And you basically have to go out there and explore. There's a few websites that keep track of this, and you can check out the different AIs every time they come on board to see whether or not it's something you'd like to use. But it's like apps on phones. Initially there were none, and eventually there were thousands. Now there are thousands, and most people don't even go looking through them because there's so many. But the same thing will happen with these platforms. There'll be so many, we won't be able to keep track of them. Okay. If you have any questions, you can put them up into the chat, and we'll collate them later on. Hopefully I'll have enough time to answer them, okay? So back to that initial graph that I put up of the AI disruptions or impacts through automation. So there's the graph once again. So what we can do with this graph, we can actually plug it into ChatGPT, and we can get it to analyze and interpret what's contained within this graph. So if it is difficult to understand and there's a lot of stuff in there, we can just plug it in and see what it comes up with. So that's what I did. And let's have a look. So I did give it a role, and I created a prompt. I pasted in the graph, and it started to analyze the information. So overall, it went through the analysis, and then it gave us the conclusion. And then I said, okay, what will this look like in a classroom in the next 3 years? Create an image, and it created an image. So this is through one platform, you can do all of that, which is ChatGPT. So the prompt and the output. So the prompt is the bit that I requested the information through the ChatGPT. So it's part of the chat that's my part of the chat, and I have to give it instructions. So it is like it has got a lot of content, but it's not deep thinking. They talk about deep AI or deep large language models, deep thinking large language. They're not. They've just got a lot of information. That's what deep means. They're like a child without instructions, or a new brain without the instructions, without that instruction from a parent or a teacher. It doesn't know what to do with it. So it has to be quite clear, or the instructions have to be quite clear and precise. So the prompt that I gave for this task was, as a statistician with expertise in data interpretation, particularly in the education and the academic sectors, I need your analysis of the provided graph. Please conduct a thorough review from an educational and academic standpoint, focusing on current trends and projecting future developments over the next few years. Present your findings in bullet points, ensuring they are clear and comprehensible at a graduate level. So I've given it the role, I've given it what I wanted to do, I've told it how I wanted to present the data and what I want in the data, and the audience, the level of the the audience level. I've described that as well. Okay, so it's quite important to do that, because otherwise you're just going backwards and forwards, and you might find that once you start experimenting with it. And this was the output. So it did tell us what was in the graph quite easily, and it gave us some assessment of what it was talking about as well. And in the end, it gave us so a few more assessments, and in the end, it gave us a conclusion. From an educational and academic standpoint, there is a clear trend towards integrating AI into curricula across various fields, with an emphasis on developing skills that complement AI capabilities. Institutions may need to adapt by AI, ensuring that graduates are well equipped for future developments. Okay, so that was one example. So, and there's the picture that it generated at the end. So what is prompt engineering? So it's fairly important that we know how to do this. Otherwise, you will be going backwards and forwards with single lines or single sentences. And it's far easier to put a bit of thought into it and put a prompt together that makes sense to you, and that will make sense to the bot, to the ChatGPT. So prompt engineering for generative AIs is important as crafting a well-designed prompt that can be reused and allows for consistent high-quality results. This saves time, as a single well-thought-out prompt replaces the need for multiple instructions. It needs to be remembered that large language models uses natural language as being So being stern and polite plays a role here as well. So I'll talk about that later on. But sometimes you need to be stern with it because it is using our language. So we are stern when we want our point to come across. So you have to do the same thing with AI. Okay, so how do we do this? We have 5 parts to it. We assign a role to the ChatGPT or to the AI. So we tell it how we want it to act or who we want it to be. We tell it what our needs and what the output should be. We give it details of the task, and you can, if you go back later, you can see that in the prompt that I created, and we'll have a look at the next prompt anyway. We give it conditions, so do's and don'ts, and we might even put in some data like that graph that I put in and examples of what we might like at the end. So roles, you can assign it a role as a teacher, engineer, statistician. You can even tell it to act like Steve Jobs, as long as it's someone that there's a lot of data about on the internet that the large language model has been scraped for. Then it will be able to act as that person. So if there's an autobiography about that person, it will go through that and actually be able to act as that person. The needs and the output. So you need to define the output. So is it going to be a report or an email or a summary? Okay, and that needs to be quite clear. Or it's better to be clear, otherwise it doesn't know what to do with it really. State the purpose, explicitly mention what you need from the output, and guide the response. So you want to guide how it comes out, and I'll talk about that with the example in a minute. You also want to put in the target audience. So an example would be an email needs to be informative, have headings, break up the ideas. It's going to be sent to the managing director of TAFE New South Wales. So just by me putting in that it's going to be an email, that it has to be informative, you've given it what it's going to look like at the end and how much information it should have in it. With the breakup of ideas and the headings, it will do that as well. So, and because it's going to the managing director, it's going to assume that it's going to be fairly formal and fairly informative as well. So it will assume the target audience through the description of the person or people you are sending it to. Details of the task. So you should detail your requirements. For example, ask your AI to evaluate data based on textbooks, summarized textbooks. Restating what you've already put into the prompt beforehand is not an issue because it will just assume that that's something that's important to you. You can include step-by-step instructions here as well. So do this before you do this, and it makes a bit more. It makes for the outcome to be a bit more helpful, and it'll be a better outcome. So improve this email with the use of statistics. Take a breath and conduct this step by step, looking at each data point one at a time. So some research has suggested that by putting in things like take a breath, we'll get a better result, a better output. So by telling the AI to take a breath, it will actually stop and reassess what it's supposed to do. And then by putting in step by step, the instructions to do step by step, we'll do points step by step, and you'll get a better outcome. And when I mentioned here before that in the earlier slide, that if you have these prompts and you save them, you can just reuse them. You just change the roles and the other parts in it. So if you already have one good prompt and it's giving you a good result, you just keep reusing it. Conditions. This is where you put in your do's and don'ts. So some of the language, and you might have noticed with the conclusion that came out for the graph, it was a bit verbose, and it was probably language that most of us wouldn't use. So you can tell it not to use certain words. So avoid using words such as moreover, furthermore, and phrases such as in addition. They're not phrases and words that most people use. So if you take them out, it will sound a lot more natural. Data examples, which are the things that you might put in at the end. So if you wanted to analyze data, you can add the data at the end. This can be a spreadsheet that you attach, but you don't have to do that. You can actually copy the data from the spreadsheet and paste it in at the end of the prompt. So an example there, use the attached spreadsheet to complete the analysis, and the subject of the email will be hi. So we'll create the subject for you straight away. Okay, so what can we use it for? Let's do some practical examples. So the first one I've got here is marking an English essay. So what I've asked it to do is to look at criteria for the marking of an essay. This was supplied by Karen Facioli for a TPC English essay. So I fed the criteria, the marking criteria for the essay into ChatGPT, and then I fed it the essay. Okay, so let's have a look what happened. So there's my prompt that I started with, and I created the prompt in Word. There's the criteria, marking scale or marking matrix, what it's going to be out of. I copied that, the whole thing, and pasted it into ChatGPT. Okay, and then it says, okay, please give me the essay now, because that's what I instructed it to do. I copied the essay. And it starts marking it. As you can see, with each point for the mark, it actually gives you a reason for why it gave it that mark. And the end result was 22 out of 25, converting it straight in, directly into a mark out of 50. And the mark that it was given by ChatGPT was 22 out of 25, and that was the same mark that 47 English teachers across the state gave it. So it was verified, that mark was verified by 47 teachers, and I think that was used as the basic, that was used for 2 years, that essay, as a benchmarking essay. So it was giving the same result consistently. There are some glitches with this, and I think if you were going to use it, and it can be used, you would have to be a little bit more precise. I didn't put that much time into this prompt, but you would probably have to be a lot more precise with the prompt and with the marking guide as well. You would have to add additional stuff into the marking guide. But you can see once you've set it up correctly and properly, this can be reused over and over, and it could save a lot of time. So that was my prompt as an English teacher holding a degree in English, and with your specialized skills. In assessing English essays, especially within the TPC course, I require you to evaluate the forthcoming essay using the criteria provided below. Kindly perform a detailed assessment and assign a score out of 25 based on these criteria, and then convert this mark to 1 out of 50 and report that too. Before commencing the marking, please pause together your thoughts and proceed methodically through the task. I will supply the marking criteria below and then wait for the actual essay to be sent to you. Okay, and that was the result. So if you have a look at the first one, its reasoning for giving it a 5 out of 5 for that part was the essay effectively discusses the topic and scope of research using a wide range of materials and sources. The bibliography includes more than 5 different sources, including both primary and secondary sources, demonstrating a comprehensive understanding of the topic. So you can see it can be used. So if you're marking 100 of these, you could get AI to mark these and then take maybe 10 samples to make sure that the mark is verified. And if it works across a range of the essays, you can safely say that it's marked it accurately. But again, we don't really have any rules on this yet, so we'll have to wait and see. And then to give you a comment at the end that you could even give to the student. The essay provides a thorough analysis of the impact of fast fashion on society and the environment, and so on. But you can see that it could be quite useful for marking. Okay, writing emails is the next one. That's quite useful for a lot of us. So I've asked it to write an email. So I've collated the information that you've supplied me in the survey. I did this a few days ago, so there weren't many there. So the survey results were put into a Microsoft spreadsheet, and I was able to put that into ChatGPT and asked it to write an email about this. So let's have a look about developing professional development. So there's a spreadsheet. I think it only had 16 responses at the time. It goes through an analysis of the spreadsheet. It was coming up with errors that day because the internet was in and out, unfortunately. Okay, so there's the email that it created. Okay, so now include some graphs and put it all together into a Word document. So you can create a Word document for you as well. and it will create the graphs as well. And there's document. Okay, you would have to move things around, and I wouldn't use this email directly. I would go through and change a lot of the stuff because it can use language that's not natural, okay, for most people. So you would have to go through and reword it, but most of it's there, so it would have saved you a whole heap of time in the construction of the email. All the ideas are there, and then you just have to make sure that it actually reads well and is informative. So the spreadsheet, so I went through and wrote a prompt. I told it that it's my assistant, and I want you to draft an email about potential professional developments for educators at TAFE New South Wales. You, the assistant, have expertise in writing concise and informative emails and expertise in the analysis of spreadsheets, data, statistics. I want you to focus on AI's role in teaching and administration. The email should highlight key issues backed by data and graphs from the provided spreadsheet. It needs to discuss AI advancements and suggest professional future development strategies. Please include clear section headings and recommendations for the department head based on your findings. Use graphs to reinforce your statements. Before starting on the email, take a deep breath and complete this task step by step. So again, I've put that bit in there because you do get a better result. So I've sort of broken that prompt up into the different parts. So you've got your role again, what it needs to do. I don't think I'd put any don'ts in there, but I did put a lot of do's in there, so that what I want from the output. And then it created the email. And again, I would go through it, and obviously you have to change things, but it gives you a recommended subject line as well. Okay, and a conclusion at the end, which you wouldn't put a conclusion into an email, so you would usually change that sort of stuff as well. And then gives you the graphs as well. Okay, the next sort of example I thought of that we could have a look at is career counselling and call center bot. So there's a part in ChatGPT which is called agents, and you can create your own bot. TAFE could actually create bots using a standalone large language model. So you can actually take these large language models, because they're open source, put them onto a server internally behind firewall, so that people don't have access to it directly, and then train it on the internal data of that TAFE New South Wales would have. So you could put all the course information in there. You could put all the documentation that we would like in there, and you could put all the contact details of different people, teachers, coordinators that you would want in there. And then the students could actually inquire through this and get direct contact to a teacher and be talking to a teacher within a few hours, and possibly not even need to talk to a teacher and enroll directly if they know what they want to do. So let's have a look what it does. So this was a bot that I called TAFE New South Wales Course Guide. And I told it that I wanted to get into cosmetic nursing. Okay, and so it says, oh yeah, great thing to get into. And it asks me, where are you located? What did you achieve as your highest qualification? What is your English proficiency? Okay, so based on your postcode and your qualification, so it's found out that TPC is Tertiary Preparation Certificate. So it's okay, you can do the Diploma of Nursing. This is what you need for it. Okay, and there's the link, and you can click on the link and it takes you directly to the enrollment form online, where you can find the enrollment form. Okay, so that's a quick example of how we could use it for careers counselling, but also call center as a call center bot. So what I've done with that chatbot or that agent is I've instructed it with these following points. So it was using TAFE New South Wales website for the information. So I told it how to find the website by giving it the link. Then I told it that it would have to ask the person about their highest qualifications, English proficiency, and post-course aspirations, so it would know in which direction to go. This data helps suggest relevant course options. Then it links to a browser tool and looks for this information online for college locations and possibly coordinator or someone that they might be able to talk to, and then provides a link that the student can apply to the course with. Okay, so that's just a repeat of what was in the screen before. Okay, and that was the link that I was able to click on at the end. Another bot that I created through Agent was a tutor bot. So obviously we want to engage our students a little bit differently, and we can engage through these bots. And it can be quite different for students because it can actually knuckle down to a specific gap in their knowledge, and they don't have to ask a question about it because the AI can go through and work out what these gaps are intuitively by asking a series of questions. Okay, so you can use this bot for all sorts of stuff, for SOL, for science, for maths, but I use the science example as a science teacher. Okay, so I called it a TAFE tutor for TPC, but again, this can be used for anything. So I asked it to teach me about bacteria. And it says, okay, what do you know about bacteria so far? And I said, I have a year 12. I know that they are single-celled organisms. So, and the question about it is, where do they live? Because I don't know. So it goes through the information. Basically, bacteria live everywhere. And then it says, here are some gaps that you might need to know about: diversity, benefits and harms, reproduction. And I say, okay, I don't know much about any of these. So it goes through, and then it goes into more information about each point. Then it gives me some links that you can look at in their videos. And then it consolidates the knowledge through a multiple choice quiz, asking one question at a time. Answer. Okay, told me that I'm correct. And it's only I've instructed for it to be a 5-question multiple choice quiz. And then the last one I put in as incorrect, and it was, oh no, that was still correct. Yeah, I think it was one more, yeah, that last one. It told me that, yeah, that was the incorrect answer, and told me why it was the correct answer was the correct answer. It says, okay, thank you. Do you want anything else? If not, that's all. Okay. So I think this is the one that was asked about by a lot of people, which is content creation. And so the site that you can use ChatGPT for content creation as well, but it's not as automated yet. There probably will be later on. But Education Copilot is a really good one. And it is free. It does have a subscription for some stuff, but it is free to use. But it still uses the same chat or same OpenAI large language model as ChatGPT. So it's all based on that. There's the QR code. If you want to scan that, you should be able to get to that website and start using it when you have some time. Okay, and I'll just show you an example of what I did with that. I still kept on with the bacteria, so I kept using the same concept. So I asked it to create some lesson plans on bacteria. Okay, so I told it what it needs to cover, and you don't have to put much in here, depending on how many plans or how many lessons you want to cover and how much information you want to cover. You put in the objectives. And then you tell how many lessons you want to create. Okay, and then creates 3 lessons. That's the first one. Okay, that's the summary of a lesson. It gives you a lesson plan. And this is pretty quick, so you can create a lesson within a few minutes. A handout that you can give out to the students. It's fairly rudimentary, but it's still pretty good. Context builder. Okay. And then it's got some videos that you can share with your students to consolidate the information, and it will have an essential quiz. Okay, so that's quite useful, and yeah, you can have a look at that later on, obviously. Okay, some of the Easier stuff is image generation. So we can have a look at that. This is through Firefly. So I used Adobe Firefly, which we all have access to. So I asked it to create a Dashound surfing at Wollongong Beach North near the lighthouse. So it created 4 different images. So we can then choose one. So I chose that one. And then we can say, I want to create more images around this. And it creates 4 different images very closely related to the first one. And then again, you can pick that one and you can copy that, save it, do whatever you like with it. Okay, and it's copyright free, should be copyright free, although it is based on pretty much every image on the internet. So someone does own part of that lighthouse or part of that building somewhere. Okay, but it's all being consolidated or put together into one image. So translation is probably the next thing that will be quite useful for most of us, or in the future. So language boundaries will disappear with large language models because not just English text, but all of the texts have been put into these large language models. So it has an understanding of almost every language that's been written down on the planet. So let's have a look at this this is direct translation. So in the background, this lady is actually speaking English, but it's translating it directly into another language. So hopefully you can hear this if you can't, because sometimes there can be issues with sound. She's speaking and it looks quite natural, and she starts speaking in another language, the appropriate language that's required. And
there is no sound.
Okay, fair enough. So yeah. So as I described it, you can have a look at this presentation later on. I'll put it up somewhere. I'll keep it in. I think I'll put it up into the in the presentation itself or into the Teams meeting, so you can go back to it and listen to it later on. But basically, she's quite naturally translating or speaking in another language. But in the background, she's speaking in the original English. So speaking back in English. So we can do that now with phones. Okay, with ChatGPT does it. I think some Android phones have already done it for a little while as well. But ChatGPT does it, so you can speak into it in English and it'll translate it into whatever language you want within reason, and vice versa. So you can use it as a translator. But there's more to come with this, and eventually these sorts of language boundaries or barriers will be completely removed for us on a global scale. Okay, so how do we need to prepare ourselves as teachers, as educators, as students? We need to be ready for this. It's proliferating very quickly through most workplaces. Students need to be taught about how to use it responsibly. The next generation of kids, they'll be AI generation or generation AI. We are moving from a digital age to an AI age. And the reason that we are doing that is because computers, originally, we can't talk to computers. Up until now, we couldn't talk to computers unless you knew how to code. But that language boundary is disappearing because we can talk to computers directly through our natural language, which are the languages that we speak. Professional developments will need to be tailored to staff, and a lot of you did raise this issue in the survey that you would like professional developments to be started at a very basic level and go through the different levels up. Okay, so I'm not sure if there will be future professional developments, but I assume there will be because this is such an emerging part of our workforce. Privacy and security need to be addressed. Okay, so our individual privacy or information needs to be secure, and the student information and privacy needs to be secure as well. And at the moment, large language models don't actually allow you to ask questions about individuals. You can try and do that, but it will tell you, I am not allowed to do this. And that's due to human alignment. So a lot of these models have gone through what they call human alignment. And then they've been told, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can only do this. And at the moment, they are abiding to that. But if you get a standalone large language models, you can remove all of those boundaries. So if you put one onto your computer, and you can do that if you have a good computer, you can put a large language models on there and use it. So something like Llama, and if you'd like to look that up, it's LAMA, Llama 2, I think it is, and you can actually download that and use it as a standalone language model. Teachers' roles will need to be clear over the next few months and years. This is happening fairly quickly, so it's within months to years. They need to be clear, and I'll talk about that in the next slide. It is becoming a little bit clearer. Tools need to be available, and they are available to most people. As I said in one of those slides, we have got access to the free ChatGPT. Copilot is getting better, and we have free access to the whole suite of that. We'll need to learn how to use it effectively in an integrated way with all of our emails and Word documents. We need to understand that there is a limitation to generative AI, which is what most of this stuff is. Like I said, it has been aligned, so it's human aligned, which also means that it will hallucinate. It can make things up. A lot of that stuff that's in the LLM, there's a lot of data in there. Sometimes it can't actually link all of that stuff up accurately, and will spit out what they call hallucinations, which is inaccurate data or text. And then you do need someone like a discipline specialist to go through it to ensure that it is correct, or as correct as can be. Clear usage policies developed and redeveloped due to emerging nature. Okay, the policies, some policies are there, but it will need to be on a continuous loop. So people will need to look at these policies and reevaluate them and create new ones or remove old ones. And what I mean by that, so policy in TAFE and schools up until October 2023, New South Wales Department of Education had the following policy. So this is the policy that we would have been following as well. At that point, students were restricted and they couldn't access AI. Okay, but I'm not sure how that was monitored or policed, because there's so many different platforms that students could have used, and they obviously can use their phones for it as well. Safeguarding personal information. So we need to safeguard personal information. So that's a policy that is in place. Okay, and that needs to be followed. So it cannot access personal information and divulge it to anyone as well. AI-generated content has to be verified. So as I said before, we still need content specialists to verify the data that comes out of AI or generative AI. Mandatory training. So there will be mandatory training, and it's going to be incorporated probably into the cybersecurity and data breach, and along with all the other types of mandatory protection that we do every year. But it will probably be incorporated into cybersecurity, one of those. Effective prompting is actually part of the policy. So knowing how to prompt correctly is actually a part of the policy. So I'm not sure if anything's come out about that, but I doubt it. So it is something that will have to be learned, and maybe professional developments. I would imagine that each of those examples that I gave, including prompting, would be an hour, maybe to 2 hour long professional development on its own. This framework was released last week for New South Wales schools. So teaching and learning in schools, effectively they're saying everyone's going to be using it, teachers and learners and students. But we will have to think critically about how it's used. So I think a lot of the points that you all raised through the survey was that what do we do about plagiarism? Well, the teachers will be the checkers of plagiarism. You'll say, well, I don't believe that is your own work. Can you please come back and reword it? And you might have to warn students that you will be asking them to do that if you suspect that it's being created solely by AI. But we will be teaching them how to use it to create documents and to create text. But we have to show them how to do it so they're doing it ethically and leveraging it, not just copying and pasting it. So human and social well-being. So it needs to benefit the entire school community. So it means there needs to be equity, I think, and that's what they're talking about there. So people or students and teachers will have to have access to all of this. Transparency, I think what they're saying there is that the community needs to understand that what the impact and how AI is being used in schools. And like I said, the kids coming through schools now, when they are going through to high school and to university, they'll be Gen AI. They will all have used AI or generative AI for their work. So we have to work out a way of making sure that they're using it in an ethical, leveraged way instead of just copying and pasting. Fairness, ensuring AI tools are accessible. Okay, it goes back to one of the other points as well. So we have to make sure that there's no discrimination. Accountability, maintain human control. It's similar to one of the other points from the Department of Ed policy. So we basically still have to have specialists that can check the output. And again, privacy and security is a big issue. Hopefully that's answered some of the questions that you all had through the survey. There's some links that you can look at later on. So that's pretty much most of my presentation. If there's some conclusive statements, it is a great tool. Okay, but at the moment it's an excellent tool to use as an assistant for teachers. So you can use it to create content, to help you create content, and students use it already, and they need to be advised that we will be checking on how to use it ethically. So one of the ways that you can check, I'm not sure if all of you have heard, but Turnitin has been canned and it is no longer subscribed to by New South Wales State. So we can't be using Turnitin to check whether or not the work was plagiarized because it doesn't work. There's no point using it because AI can get around by having a good prompt like I've shown you before. You can get around that and create text that Turnitin will not pick up as AI produced. But you can put it back into AI and say, so if the student submitted to you digitally, you can submit it back through to AI and say, was this created by AI? And we'll probably come up with a pretty good answer. And then you can always create a short answer quiz or a comprehension quiz that you can give back to the student to check whether or not they've written it. And if they can't answer any of the questions from the short answer comprehension, then you know that they haven't written it. You say, well, you haven't written this. You need to go back and come back and resubmit. And it's something that we will have to work on over the next few months to work out some sort of strategy to get around this. It's probably a lot easier to create copied and paste content from AI for text only or English-based type subjects. It's a little bit harder for maths, but it can be done for maths as well. And it's a little bit harder for science as well because of the structure of the assessments. So from here, what I'd like you to do is just go and explore the different concepts and different sites that I've discussed. If you do have questions, put them into the chat and I'll have a look at them in a little while. But here are some of the discussion points that came from the survey today. So I'll see if I can cover some of them. This is from the survey today. Balancing AI, human class input. Yes, so we have to balance. I think what people were saying there, striking a balance between how AI assists students and what they do on their own. Absolutely. We need to make sure that we show them how to use it to create an outline maybe, but they still have to put the essay together themselves. And so do the research, read the information and put it all together themselves. Ethical use and academic integrity. Yes, again, I've already talked about that. We need to make sure that there are some guidelines over the next few months, years to ensure that plagiarism or lack of originality or just copying and pasting doesn't occur as much. But it's going to be hard or it's going to be difficult to do. Equitable access. Yes, so a lot of teachers raise that they might not have access to this, but like I said, we will all have access through Microsoft 365. Copilot is AI, and it will be integrated into a lot of the things that we do, and hopefully it'll be easy to use. But you do have access to all of the free ones as well now. Combating misinformation, establishing to ensure the accuracy of information. Yes, so misinformation, again, this will be checked by content specialists. So we have to have content specialists checking this stuff at every point. So it's no good having a scientist creating a course or an outline for a course for graphic design, because I don't know how to design a graphic effectively. Even though I can design a graphic using Firefly, my instructions are not going to be as good for Firefly or the prompt is not going to be as good as someone that has got the expertise in that field. Professional development. So a lot of you raised that we will need professional development, and so that's something that our leaders will have to have a look at, the team leaders and higher up, to see what sort of professional developments we will be creating or putting together. Managing the pace of our advancement. This is difficult. So yes, how can you manage the pace of something that is emerging exponentially almost? It's difficult. So we just have to look at best practice examples and use them for now, because I don't think anyone within TAFE, unless that would be a full-time job for a team to keep up with this, I think, at this stage. So I don't think any one person will be able to do this. And it would probably be done on a summary basis. So where you could look at it on a maybe a weekly basis and see what's out there, and someone could summarize it. Student engagement and adaptive learning. Yes, as I showed you before, we've got all these bots that we can create, and we can create standalone bots within TAFE behind a firewall as well that students could use. That's trained specifically what we need. So the bot that I created for the quiz with the bacteria, I also used it for teaching a student how to learn about colloquial Australian terms, and it created images of things like sausage rolls and pavlova, and which it thought to be colloquial, which I guess it is in a way. And then the student would then have a visual display of what was actually represented by that term as well. So you can use it for all sorts of stuff, but it is much more engaging. And because the students sometimes, students don't want to ask questions, so they might engage through AI more easily. Okay, questions and answers. I'll have a look, see if there's anything there that I can answer quickly, or if you
I've collated a list of questions for you, which I can give to you afterwards.
Yep. Okay, and I can answer them later. That's fine. Yep. Yeah. Okay. I think we have 10 minutes, so if I can open it to questions now, just here if you like. Do we have 10 minutes? Yeah, about 10 minutes. Yeah, so if people like to ask me any questions, they can. Not sure if I can answer them. But...
Merrick, it's Michelle Morrison. Michelle Morrison. This may be hello, Merrick. Long time no speak.
I know.
This may be a very silly question. What does bot stand for? Bot.
Oh, it's just a robot. So it's just a shortening of robot. So it's a bot. Yeah. So a bot is ChatGPT is a bot because you talk to it and it talks back like a robot, basically.
Okay. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Hi, Merrick. Karen, how are you?
Good. How you going?
Good. Which one? I think you might have said it, but I missed it. Which do you use, ChatGPT or?
Yeah, I've tried most of them, but I always go back to ChatGPT because it's just got a nicer interface, and I think they put a lot more money into the interface, so it is easier to use. I do subscribe, like I said, but yeah, it's about $20 US a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
And from what I can see and what you've told me too in the staff room, that you have to know what to put into the search. I think
that's right.
That's the difference between us and students. Students might put something very basic or limited and don't get the answer that is that correct?
Yeah, so yeah, I'm getting what point you're getting at. So in most cases as teachers, we will be able to tell whether or not it's AI generated, because they don't know how to prompt. They will just say, I want an essay on the American Revolution or whatever. And it'll give them an essay, but it won't be an essay that they'll be able to use. It might be out of context. It might not be correct. In order to be able to get a good essay, you would need to be able to write a really good prompt, and then even possibly go backwards and forwards with the criteria.
Which we now have. Yeah, absolutely. There was one question that came up too about referencing. When you're using these things, I assume there's nothing put down for copyright at this point, would they?
No, but I think that there is some movement there to say that once you've produced a whole document, if that's what you're going to do, and I don't see how you could do that at this point, you probably would have to reference ChatGPT maybe. But don't forget, I mean, when you're referencing ChatGPT, you're referencing all the authors that have put all this stuff together, and it's been put into the large language model.
That's sort of like referencing library, basically.
That's right. Yeah. So yeah, I'm referencing everything on the planet. Yeah.
Yeah. One of my students did that, by the way, put in their reference ChatGPT. So, thank you. It's been a great presentation. I'll let someone else talk to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure where that guide is, but I think that's going to change. Someone asked about not using ChatGPT to use students' work. It's being used across a lot of universities now to mark work, because you can imagine, instead of spending 15, 20 hours on marking stuff, you can do it within a few minutes. Okay, yeah, great. Yeah, any other questions? If there's no questions, yeah.
Merrick and Peter, look, first of all, yeah, really interesting presentation. I am still concerned about how we are going to police that, because, you know, from my experience, students will dispute that they have used one or the other thing. And now that you said that Turnitin is basically useless for doing this, yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll answer it. Okay, what happens is, if you ask a student, oh, my light's gone out, whether or not they've used GPT, in most cases they will tell you yes. Okay, and you say, well, I'd like you to change it. Policing will be up to you. There's no other way around it at the moment. We don't have any other way to do it apart from your discipline expertise to be able to determine, which is as a teacher, as an educator, whether or not that was produced by the student. If they could only form a sentence or two together before they handed a 300 or say 3,000 word essay to you, then you know it's not their work, and you can say, look, I've never seen this sort of work from you. I don't think it's yours. And I think we will have to have some warnings prior to starting classes, saying, you know, if it's generated by AI, we will probably question and we'll ask you to resubmit. In terms of policing, I don't see how we could do it. We can't police, copying and pasting from the net easily anyway. So they're doing it already. They're just doing it more efficiently with AI. Okay, so they could do it with Google before. You know, we were all worried about them using Google 15 years ago, or maybe 20 years ago now, however long it was, or using Wikipedia and all the other stuff. But we actually direct them to that now, and that's their way of researching. Okay, we don't send them to the library anymore to search for stuff. So it's just a changing world, and we do have to work out a way of doing it. Policing will be down to the teacher at the moment, and that might change, but I don't see how.
I remember a few months ago there was a case where I think a lawyer in the United States used precedent cases actually using ChatGPT, and ChatGPT seems to have sort of fabricated these cases. Yeah. They weren't real cases, yeah. So that's probably another caution here, you know.
Well, that's right, absolutely. So like I said before, it will hallucinate. It will make things up. So if you're not an expert in the discipline, then you will not be able to pick that up. That lawyer, he did it the night before. It took 5 minutes to put this brief together. Didn't even check it, and took it straight in, thinking that it's going to be accurate. He just assumed it was going to be accurate. He didn't know that there were shortfalls. Yeah. So yeah, you would, as an expert, he should have checked it, but he didn't.
Thank you.
No problem.